When the company XTEINK sent me this, I thought I knew exactly what this review was going to be. A tiny eInk reader. Interesting idea. Nice gimmick. Few compromises. End of video. But after spending some time with it, I found myself in a slightly awkward position. I like the idea and I like some of what it does. It's one of those products where I can completely understand the appeal, while still not being entirely convinced I'd spend my own money on one. Hey friends, Mark from The Spark here. Thanks for tapping play, and in this video I may very well upset some people. So this is the XTEINK X4, quite a mouthful. It's a small palm-sized dedicated e-ink reader with a 4.3-inch display, around 200 ppi and a weight of roughly 75 grams. It's USB-C charging, has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for some reason, and in my case at least, it comes with a micro SD card included in the box. I don't believe there's any onboard storage. It's also the smallest e-ink reader I've ever got my hands on. You can load your own books and documents onto it and have it with you at all times and barely notice it's in your pocket. Simple enough. But after trying quite hard to get my head around it for a few weeks, here's what I've learned. The biggest reason to buy the X4 is freedom. Unlike a Kindle, you're not buying into Amazon's ecosystem. You're not tied to a particular bookstore and you're not paying for subscriptions, at least not for now. You never know these days. Nope, you just load your own files onto it and just get on with reading. And for some people, that's incredibly appealing. One thing I genuinely liked was how easy it was to get content onto the device. I expected to have to plug in a cable, faff around my MacBook instead of my daily driver iPad Pro, download an app, create an account, and all the usual nonsense, though I will come on to the app in a moment. I also thought maybe I'd have to keep pulling out the micro SD card, putting it into an adapter, copying files across and then slotting it back into the X4 every time I wanted to add something. And as with most SD cards, it's so clunky to put back in. Why hasn't anyone come up with a better solution? Anyway, in fact, the easiest way to transfer files is through a QR code option built into the X4 itself. You simply scan the code, it opens a web page, and from there you can upload files directly to the device. Now, onto the app. Yes, you do need to create an account, and yes, you need to bind the X4 to it, which is a slightly odd bit of wording. In normal English, that basically means you pair this device with your account. Anywho, once that's done, you can send books and documents directly to the X4 over Wi-Fi. The process is fairly easy, but it's not as polished as, say, a Kindle experience. With this, you need to buy or download an EPUB from somewhere like eBooks.com, find the file on your device, then either scan the QR code or use the app to transfer it across. After that, you wait for it to finish transferring, index it, and then it will appear on the reader. So yes, it works, but it is quite the opposite of, say, Amazon's ecosystem where you buy a book and it appears on your Kindle a few seconds later, all ready to read. Overall though, while the software on the reader itself does feel rough around the edges, getting books onto this device was actually easier than I expected. Battery life is also excellent. That is one of the advantages of e-ink technology. You charge it and then you can pretty much forget about it for weeks. And this is despite the size of the X4. Yeah, you've got a smaller battery, but if it's only using power when network connectivity is on or you're turning a page, that doesn't matter. And because the X4 is small and very light, it doesn't need charging every other day. It becomes the sort of thing you don't have to decide in advance whether you're taking it with you. With something like a Kindle Paperwhite, you're usually making a conscious decision to take it with you. You're putting it in a bag, finding a large coat pocket or somewhere else because you think you might want to read later. The X4 is different. It doesn't feel like something you have to make room for. It just comes with you. And that changes how the device gets used. Rather than sitting down for a long reading session, you might find yourself reaching for it during those small gaps in the day, waiting for an appointment, waiting for the bus, or even walking the dog. These are the moments where you might normally pick up your phone, and then before you know it, you're scrolling through something you didn't even care about 5 minutes earlier. Because it doesn't have messages, emails, YouTube, WhatsApp, and everything else fighting for your attention. It gives you a more focused reading experience. And all those little moments add up. Swapping your phone for the X4 could mean that you actually finish that book or learn something useful a lot sooner. Whether that's enough to justify buying one is another question, but I do think that's where this product makes the most sense. Oddly, one of the most annoying things about it is the buttons, and there are quite a few of them, 6 in fact, but 2 of them do double duty. You've got the power button, you've got the next page or up and down buttons, back and select button, left and right button, and even a reset button on the side. For such a tiny device, there's a surprising amount of buttons. Now that all probably sounds ridiculous, but we've all become so used to touch screens that it's difficult going back to a device controlled entirely by physical buttons. It feels strange, and yes, a number of times I did go to tap the screen. And I really wanted to do this whilst initially setting it up. Typing in Wi-Fi details on this thing when you've got a long password was quite frankly a pain. You're moving around an onboard screen keyboard with buttons, selecting one character at a time, or trying to remember which button confirms, which one moves, which one takes you back. Now, to be fair, once this setup is complete, it becomes much less annoying. You're not entering Wi-Fi passwords every 5 minutes. Most of the time, you're just turning this on, opening a book and turning the pages. Even then, there's still a short learning curve. You have to remember what a short press does, what a long press does, which button goes up, which button goes down, which button confirms, and which button goes back. And when you're just getting started with this thing, it's a bit frustrating, though I do concede eventually you get used to it. What's funny is I thought I would enjoy the buttons more than I actually did. I used to love the Kindle Oasis and its physical page turn buttons, but the Oasis also had a touchscreen, and that makes a difference when you want to do something else other than turn a page. Another thing that left me feeling disappointed rather than annoyed was the magnetic attachment. This is one of the headline features in XTEINK marketing. The idea is that you can attach it to the back of your phone and carry a little eInk companion around without adding too much bulk to your pocket. XTEINK says that the X4 is MagSafe compatible, and technically it does have magnets built into the back, and it also comes with magnetic rings in the box. In practice though, I found the magnetic connection absurdly weak. Even after experimenting with a supplied ring, I never reached the point where I trusted it attached to the back of my iPhone, and I'm using the Pro Max version, so it isn't exactly a small phone. No matter which way I tried to attach it, it just didn't want to stay put. Interestingly, I thought this might just be me, but after reading other reviews online, I discovered several reviewers had come to a similar conclusion. The idea of being able to MagSafe attach this to your phone is excellent. The execution, at least in my experience, is much less convincing. If your entire reading life already exists inside the Kindle ecosystem, for example, and you have no desire to leave, then I'd think very carefully before buying this. One of Kindle's greatest strengths is simplicity. Buy a book, tap a book, read a book. The X4 requires a little more involvement. You're managing your own files, you're transferring content yourself, and depending on your personality, that's either a strength or an inconvenience. Don't buy it if you're imagining a cozy bedtime reader with the lights off, because the X4 doesn't come with a front light, so you'll need a lamp. In bright daylight, that's not a problem at all. In fact, outdoors on a sunny day is probably the best environments for it. The one thing I wouldn't be doing, though, is reading with it in heavy rain. Now, I can't find any waterproof rating for the X4, and I wouldn't want to discover its water resistance limits through trial and error. And the same goes for touchscreen controls. If you want the simplicity of tapping, swiping, and pinching your way around a device, this definitely isn't for you. Everything is done with those buttons. And I do understand why XTEINK has gone this route. Removing the touchscreen and front light does help keep the device thin, light, and relatively inexpensive. But those decisions do have consequences. And finally, don't buy it expecting premium hardware. Now, don't get me wrong, the X4 doesn't feel cheap, but it doesn't feel luxurious either. The display is perfectly readable, the text is clear enough, but compared with modern Kindle displays, it isn't especially impressive. It's functional, but not beautiful, though my wife did describe it as cute. No subscriptions are to be seen. You buy the device and that's it. The companion app is free. The file transfer options are free. There are no monthly fees and therefore no premium tiers. That doesn't mean that everything is perfect though. While I have very few complaints about the pricing model, I do have a few reservations about the software itself. The software is probably the weakest part of the experience. I mean, it works. I've had no major problems with it, but it just feels pretty basic. Navigation isn't always intuitive, and particularly if you're coming from the simplicity of something like a Kindle, it can feel very clunky. What's interesting is that a lot of enthusiasts for this device aren't actually using the software that ships with the X4. Instead, they're installing an alternative open source operating system called Crosspoint. From what I've read, many owners believe it dramatically improves the experience. Now, I haven't tried it myself yet, so everything I've said in this review is based entirely on the software XTEINK puts on the device. Trying out this Crosspoint software is something I might explore in the future video if there's enough interest from you guys, so please do let me know. I should also mention that when I first set up the X4, there was already a software update waiting for me. And it did take a few attempts to install, which didn't exactly fill me with confidence. But I'm glad that XTEINK had pushed it out, because the software before that update felt even rougher. So while I still think the software is the weakest part of the device, it does at least look like they know it needs work. Where does that leave me? I think, like I said at the start, this is where I might upset a few people. For me, the XTEINK X4 is a better idea than it is a finished product. But I don't mean that as an insult. The idea of a tiny, relatively open e-ink reader that isn't tied to Amazon is genuinely appealing. And I understand why people like this thing. The problem is the execution. The software feels too basic. The magnetic attachment is really poor. And despite all the potential distractions of my iPhone, the X4 has to work quite hard to justify its place in my pocket. Yet, strangely, I still find myself liking it. Not because it's perfect, not because it's polished, because it's different. If you're deeply invested in Kindle, I'd probably tell you to stick with Kindle. If you're happy reading on your phone, I'd probably tell you to stick with the app on your phone. But if you like the idea of an open, focused reading device and don't mind a few rough edges, the XTEINK X4 might be exactly the sort of thing you've been looking for. As always, I'd be genuinely interested to hear what you think about the XTEINK X4. Is this the sort of device you'd actually use, or would you just stick with a Kindle or an app on your phone? If you own one already, let me know how you're getting on with it. I'd love to know, especially if you've installed Crosspoint or any alternative software. If you found this video helpful and you'd like to support the channel, please do consider buying me a digital coffee using the QR code on the screen or use the link in the description. You can do this as a one-off or monthly support. As always, absolutely no pressure whatsoever. It's just a small way of supporting the work that goes into making these videos. And if you haven't already, liking, hyping, sharing and subscribing all helps the channel and tells YouTube this is a good video and more people should watch it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.